Hey everybody. In this video we're taking a look at Rogue State, which is a political slash dictator simulator in the spirit of classics such as Tropico and Nuclear War and Balance of Power and a variety of other games that have sort of dabbled in this same style of gameplay over the years. And basically, the sort of twist of this game, or the thing that I think is kind of unique about it, is the fact that you are playing a recently installed dictator in the wake of an uprising in a random Middle Eastern country, random fictitious Middle Eastern country, I should say. Um, and you are also surrounded by other random fictitious Middle Eastern countries. The interesting thing about this game is it's clearly very new in terms of a lot of the subject matter that's dealt with. A lot of the events that happen in the game are very clearly based on the modern current state of affairs in the Middle East. And that kind of makes it interesting in a way because the random nature of it and the fact that everything is kind of thinly veiled makes it possible to deal with some of the political and social and economic issues of that region in a way that's detached from what's going on in reality, but also gives you some interesting perspective on that reality if you can kind of connect the dots between the fictitious stuff that they're setting up and how it actually connects to the real world events that are being referenced. So that's kind of neat. I think this game is pretty cool based on what I've seen of it so far, and I definitely have enjoyed the time that I've spent with it. I'd say it's about 3 to 5 hours thus far, but I thought it would be cool to just do a video where I play through the first of the 5 years of the game time and show you guys what this is all about. So here we are in the game proper, and one of the first things that it has you do is assign cabinet members. And as you can see, these four people, well, three of them are random each time you play, but then you also have to give your brother a cabinet position of some sort. Actually, I don't know that you have to give him one, but I think it causes all sorts of problems right out the gate if you don't. And what I've been doing to kind of deal with him, since we don't really want to have the best of relations with outsiders right off of the bat, is I've been giving him the foreign minister role to kind of keep him out of my hair and away from things like the military and the finances and intelligence and communications. I feel like this is the least worrisome place for him to be, at least in the early stages of the game, based on the couple of playthroughs that I've done so far. But we'll go ahead and stick him there and see what we can see. Now, these other three people are random. So they're random people with random faction affiliations. So you see this guy's a patriot. Here we have a fundamentalist and another patriot. So I feel like the faction that the person is associated with has a lot to do with how well they perform each one of these roles. And you'll notice that we don't have enough cabinet members to actually declare a minister for everything. So there's going to be one thing we're going to have to let slide. But what I think we're going to do is, just based on what we have here, we're actually really lucky to have two patriots in the mix, because I believe we can use that to our advantage by having them concentrate on defense and probably finance, and then we'll have our fundamentalist take care of intelligence. It's probably going to be our best bet. So we'll be going without a communications minister for this playthrough, but as you can see, with each of these guys being random and the ability to only select up to 4 ministers and leave one unattended in each playthrough, there's a lot of random elements that are associated with that right out the gate. So there's actually a little bit of a tutorial here at the beginning, which I'll play through real quickly just so you guys get a sense of it, and that'll kind of take us through some of the initial screens of the game.
Excellency, my name is Tariq Badur. As Parliamentary Chief of Protocol, it is my duty to ensure that your instructions reach our parliamentarians. I trust you have settled into your new office. May I offer some suggestions on our first steps to restoring order to Bajinshi?
Sure, buddy, let's do this.
Yes, please begin.
Excellent. To start, there are 2 units of currency to be concerned with. One is our treasury funds, and the other is the loyalty of our parliament. We will need to rebuild basic infrastructure to begin. Click on the State Infrastructure button.
So basically the way the infrastructure building works is you have X amount of money in your treasury and you make X amount of money per turn, and you want to use that money to rebuild basic infrastructure that you need to do more complex things in the game. So we're gonna, in this first turn, we're actually gonna get water and sewage up and running. And then we're also going to do foreign aid workers. But we actually get to make a choice here as to whether we want them to focus on medical or engineering tasks. I'm actually going to go with engineering because that's what I've been doing, but I'm sure things play out slightly differently if you pick the medical option. And then we're also going to look at getting power back online. So that's kind of going to give us the fundamental stuff that we need in this first turn to be able to make some other decisions later and keep the people from getting immediately unhappy. So whether you play the tutorial or not, you're probably going to want to come in here in your first turn and get all those things fired up just to get yourself off to a good start.
And now click on the Policies button.
So basically here you can see is kind of your summary of the 4 different factions. So you have your patriots, your capitalists, your fundamentalists, and your liberals. And this kind of indicates to you how the policies that you have set impact each of those factions. So ideally you want positive growth per turn from each of these factions, but sometimes it's also just a matter of mitigating the negative impact per turn until you can get some kind of bonus or some kind of event that triggers that boosts that faction back up. It's pretty hard to keep everybody happy all the time, and actually if you try to do that, I find that the game becomes pretty difficult to handle because there's always some sort of choice being presented to you that's going to make one faction happy and the other one unhappy. So it's really just a question of trying to build up the happiness of certain factions so that when you need to do something that makes them unhappy to save your face with another faction, you're able to do that without it hurting you too much. So for the sake of the tutorial here, they want us to increase the minimum wage, which right now there is no minimum wage. We're going to bump this up just a little bit. Actually, let's bump it up to here and give people actually a fair or a decent minimum wage. And then we're also going to set up a free trade zone, which should please the capitalists at least somewhat. So as you can see here, we've gone down to negative 3% for them, which means we're not going to be losing favor with the capitalists quite so quickly as we would had we not done that.
Click on the Treasury button.
So here they recommend in the tutorial that at least for the beginning of the game you bump the tax rate up to 15% just so you get some more revenue going. Obviously you can use the tax rate to control a lot of things like favorability, and also as you get further into the game you'll be able to more granularly control this budget based on infrastructure that you build. For example, in one playthrough, I built an intelligence service, and I was able to specifically control this budget line as a result of having that infrastructure built. So that's pretty cool.
Most actions in the game cost time points. There are 4 time points in a turn. The number of time points available can be seen on the clock in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. When all 4 time points are consumed, the turn ends and an event occurs. Events are rarely good news. Most actions, including building infrastructure, changing policies, calling neighbors, and moving military units, will cost time points. When our industries are restored in the state infrastructure menu, Bajinji will receive 2 resources. Those resources will appear here, in the resource menu. I suggest exporting goods that other countries will pay well for, and importing goods necessary to create manufacturing bonuses. Manufacturing bonuses are rewards conferred for having certain combinations of goods in your country, either produced domestically or imported from neighbors. Click on the resource menu that was just highlighted to see all the possible manufacturing bonuses.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty important part of the game. Basically, as he said, once we get a certain level of infrastructure reestablished, we'll get 2 of these items to be able to export, and we'll want to collect 2 of the, or whatever combination of items we can to produce these bonuses. Because as you can see, by having these resources, whether inherently or by trading for them, we can confer a lot of really cool bonuses on ourselves that will make things a lot easier for us, especially in the mid to late game. So this is definitely something we're going to want to keep an eye on as we get further in. Unfortunately, right now we don't have the infrastructure to do with any of this, so we'll look at this in more detail later when we get to that
Keep
point.
your friends close, and your enemies closer. The people love Farouk, so you need to keep him in your regime. But we should keep a close eye on the loyalty of your parliamentarians. When faction approval drops, when your cabinet members get displeased, or when we start to lose wars or run out of funds, that's when our parliamentarians' loyalties shift. Their loyalty is represented with loyalty points, that other currency. If you start seeing loyalty points drop, then something is seriously wrong with Bajinji. If loyalty falls too low, Farouk may attempt to push us out of power. For now, let's take a closer look at the parliament window.
So as you can see, we start out the game with a fair amount of loyalty points. Basically, with a score of 60, there's no way any kind of really serious internal upheaval is going to occur. But as that value drops for various reasons, you have to become increasingly concerned about uprisings and people working against you and that sort of thing. And as the dude said, your advisors will, or your cabinet ministers will want you to do certain things at certain points in the game, and sometimes it may be to your advantage to give them what they want, but sometimes it might actually be to your disadvantage, so you kind of have to be careful about just randomly obeying whatever they want you to do, because sometimes they have their own agenda, or maybe working with your brother in the background to kind of work against you. So
I'll leave you to it now, Excellency. This is not everything there is to see and do, but with luck you will figure out the rest yourself. You can always hit the buzzer if you are in need of a more fulsome report of the health of our beloved country. For now, I suggest advancing to the next turn sooner by clicking on the clock. I have every confidence in your leadership, Excellency.
alright. So a lot of times when you play this first turn, you'll get a phone call at the end of it, which I'm getting here.
Greetings, Your Excellency. I am King Zahil Ahmed, and on behalf of Zarbil, I wanted to be the first to welcome the liberation of the People's Republic of Vesenji from the tyranny of the Saulman family. The Saulman regime was a threat to the whole region. That is why we provided your rebellion with the weaponry and training necessary to overthrow the tyrants. Once the transitional government has restored Besenji's infrastructure and industry, let us work towards restoring our trading relationship. Do not hesitate if there is any way Zarbil can be of assistance to you.
Thank you for your call. I am certain our two great nations will work together to bring great prosperity to the region. There is much work to be done, but I am grateful for your country's support.
All right, so this is actually a really interesting point that I can bring up right now, which is that each time you play, the countries that are adjacent to you and the nature of their leadership and the kind of will of their people is pretty random. So like in previous playthroughs, I've had Zarbil as a neighbor that's been highly aggressive towards me, but one thing that I found is that usually the country that first calls you on the first turn is probably going to be one of your better allies, at least in the early stages of the game, because you kind of have a history with them and they're sort of more aligned with the way your people think and behave. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say that you can always count on this first country to like not attack you or not like undermine you in some way, but it's been my experience so far that they're usually like a pretty decent ally in the like at least for the early stages. So let's go ahead and talk about issues with them just real quick and try to see if we can get a read on where they stand in terms of their general philosophy. So one thing you can do is kind of probe them by asking certain questions and see what kind of response they give. So you can see like if they're real old school and going to be real religious and traditional and fundamentalist, you can kind of bait them by like saying how important it is to maintain the old ways. And if they agree with that, then there's a good chance that they're not going to like anything that you do that goes against those old traditions. And conversely, you can downplay the importance of the old ways and the religious stuff that's going on in the region and see how they react to that. So you also have the opportunity to try to work with them and establish alliance and such. But especially in the early stages of the game, that can be really dangerous because until you know what the sort of demeanor and the way of thinking of all of the countries that are around you is, it's kind of dangerous to jump in bed with somebody real early on because you might end up making a bunch of enemies before you really understand what's going on. So I have been tending to go towards more of a secular kind of leadership style. That's been working out for me pretty well. But let's ask this guy what he thinks about this sort of thing and see what kind of response we get.
Spiritual leadership is important, but we must also accept that literal interpretations of the old ways do not make sense in this day and age.
Truly we are seeking a gentle balance between the old ways and the demands of this era. We cannot turn to faith for guidance in all matters.
Okay, so this guy's on the same page with me, which is good, which means we're probably going to get along pretty well. And had he not done that, that might set up an initial warning flag, but there's also the possibility that he could be just telling me what I want to hear, because I've seen that happen before where somebody will agree with you and then turn around and do something that's contrary to what you talked about.
Apologies, but I must go. Let us speak again later.
Goodbye.
I'm cautiously optimistic that this relationship is going to work out well, but we'll have to let a few turns pass and see what happens before we commit to anything too serious. So let's look at our world map. So these guys are to the north of us, and then to the south of us is a country that I'm not familiar with, and to the west of us, I feel like I've seen this country before, but maybe not. The other thing we can see here is what the resources are that the countries have, so that gives us an idea of what we can trade for to complete our resource bonuses if we end up being in a position to do that. And I notice that we have two countries that actually have garments. So we'll have a couple of options for where we want to get garments from if we don't have them ourselves. So that's actually pretty cool. So in this first turn, let's at least make one more call and see if we can get a read on what these other people around us are like. Yeah, let's call Babilistan.
Thank you for taking my call.
So let's discuss issues, and we'll kind of go with the same approach that we took with the other guy. And we're just going to see who has a contrary opinion to us about this issue.
Spiritual leadership is important, but we must also accept that literal interpretations of the old ways do not make sense in this day and age.
Truly, we are all seeking a gentle balance between the old ways and the demands of this era. We cannot turn to faith for guidance in all matters.
Okay, so that's good. That's another one that's kind of on the same page with us.
Apologies, but I must go. Let us speak again later.
Goodbye.
And of course, that choice only makes sense if that's the way I intend to govern. Like, obviously, if I wanted to play leaning towards more of a spiritual or religious kind of government, and I made those same calls and took those same options, those answers would be bad for me, because then I'd know that two of my neighbors have a differing opinion, which might cause friction later. But so far, it's working out nicely that the way I kind of want to play my particular government is working out well with the countries that are around me, so that's a good start. So at the end of each turn, you'll get one of these events, basically, and a lot of times sometimes you don't have any real choice depending on what your circumstances are, but a lot of times you'll have a choice as to how you want to respond to the event, and obviously that will cause different factions to respond differently to you based on what action you take or don't take. So let's see. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if we can kind of turn political, like international political attention in our favor by showing that we're not gonna, go nuts over her mocking us. This is kind of a tricky one. I kind of feel like maybe we ignore it, because if we kind of go after the, let's take a little bit of a risk here and see if we can flip this into our favor by kind of like making her look like a jerk for making fun of us. So let's see if that helps. Okay, so usually in each turn, you'll get a request, or some kind of event will happen, and these run down the left side of the screen, however many there are in each turn. So we can see this guy is requesting that we boost our popularity with fundamentalists to 57% within the next 5 turns. So the tricky thing about that is we've kind of already established that we're going with more of a secular government style. So it's going to be hard to do things that the fundamentalists are going to be super on board with, but we might be able to do some policy adjustments that don't really hurt the other factions too much, but give them just enough of a boost to get them where we want them to be. So we'll see if we can accomplish this, but I think the first thing I want to do is call that other leader and kind of get a read on what that other country's vibe is.
Thank you for taking my call. While we may glorify the old ways, we must not fall victim to the trap of institutionalizing it into the state.
You are wrong to believe this. A theocracy gives morality to the making and enforcement of laws. Religion is indispensable.
Okay, so that's our first warning sign that we may not get along with these guys in the long term. Uh, so we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on them and our relations with them. And actually, we may want to trade.
Apologies, but I must go. Let us speak again later.
Goodbye.
We may want to go out of our way to establish some trade relations with them so that the kind of ideological difference doesn't get too much in the way of what we're trying to accomplish here overall. So we're gonna have to see what makes sense for us to do. But let's take a look at the map real quick and just see kind of where we are with everybody. Yeah, we're not getting. Oh, actually, sorry, that's the wrong map. So let me go into the situation room and we'll kind of see where our relations with these other countries are. So let's go check out the strategic overview map. Yes, it seems like right now we're pretty okay with everybody. We're definitely way better off with the two countries that we share the ideology with. The other one's definitely gone a little cold to us as a result of that phone call. But I don't think that rating is low enough that we have to worry about being attacked or anything. So I think we're still in good shape. And now we know where we stand with everybody. So let's bounce out of here. We'll do more in the situation room later. It's not really that important in these first few turns at least. But it is good to get a read on kind of the political climate of things. So let's see, what do the fundamentalists want from a policy standpoint that I can do that's not going to anger anybody else? Because right now fundamentalists are gaining 2% per turn without me doing anything. So I actually should be able to leave these policies as they are, and just within, say, 3 or 4 turns, they'll meet that 57% criteria, and we should complete that objective without actually having to change anything. So I think the main thing we want to do, because changing policies also uses up some of the turn, we instead want to focus on building that infrastructure out and getting that stuff taken care of that we can do in this turn. So right now we've got 293 million, making 13 million per turn. So we should be able to complete both of these infrastructure projects that we're allowed to complete on turn 2. So let's go ahead and do that. That's going to psych the capitalists up. And then we're going to also restore telecommunications. Bam. Alright, good times. So let's see, is there anything else we want to do this turn? I don't think so. I mean, you can do some other little things like look at the newspaper, which will give you some idea of like what's going on in the area. Just grateful people are talking about us. Yeah, that's a good attitude, I think. Income tax increases are temporary. Yeah, at some point we're going to have to bring those taxes down or people are going to get salty about it. But I think we're in good shape for now. And I think that's going to do it for this turn. We can end the turn early by clicking on the clock here. Let's see what our event is for this turn. So I can either do 5 million per turn over 20 turns, or take the big hit up front. So 5 million over 20 turns is gonna be 10 or 100 million, or I can pay the 80 million now, or I can do nothing. Well, I think I'd rather spend the money now and get it out of the way than have it leeching off of us over the long haul. but I could also save the money and just start building education infrastructure as soon as that becomes available. I think that's actually what I might do, because I know that at a certain point we're going to be able to specifically spend money on schools, and it's not going to cost as much as either of these options. So I think we're going to actually ignore this, just for the time being. So we didn't lose any favorability as a result of that, which is good. And we're still gaining a fair amount of money here per turn, which is also good. So let's see what we want to do about our infrastructure this turn. I think we'll be able to get our last two pieces built, which is our, yeah, okay. So here's our industries, get those cooking. And then we're also going to do our justice system. So here we have to decide whether or not we're going to punish the people who worked for the old king and are still loyalists for the old monarchy, or if we're going to set them free. And there's consequences, as you can imagine, for both of those. If we keep them imprisoned and people find out about it, then that's going to be bad for us potentially. If we set them free, they might stir up unrest and cause problems for us. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's either way, you're going to have to likely deal with something as a result of this. My thinking is that we should probably, especially with our brother skulking around trying to undermine us, go with keeping them locked up, at least for the time being. So let's go ahead and do that. And now this actually unlocks the bigger infrastructure improvements. So now we actually have security, society, and trade and diplomacy options available to us. So that's pretty sweet. So we have 193 million in the bank, plus 20 million per turn. What I tend to like to do is to think in terms of 100 million being a zero budget, so that we're basically always trying to keep about 100 million in the bank. So what I will do, at least for these first few turns, is try to only build one or two things per turn, so that we keep a fair amount of money in reserve in case some event happens where we need the money to deal with something. But I think what we probably need to do right off the bat is look at getting our trade stuff going, just so we can establish some trade relations with our neighbors as quickly as possible. So let's go ahead and do that. And then that'll be enough for this turn. So we actually can take a couple more actions, which means we can try to trade with our neighbors and get that stuff established. Let's see if we can start making ourselves some money. Let's see what options we actually have to trade. Let's see what our resources actually are. I gotta remember, let's see. Okay, so it looks like we have oil, which is a big one. Yeah. Okay. And what's the other thing that we actually have? It looks like maybe media products is our other one. Not 100% sure about that. Well, as soon as we call somebody, we'll be able to verify that for sure. So let's talk to our friendly neighbor and see what we have that they might want.
Thank you for taking my call.
Let's talk trade. All right, so we have... Yeah, we have media and entertainment so that we can sell them. Also, we can sell them our oil. Now, we can get from them spices or garments. I think I might sell them our media.
Are you interested in negotiating a trade agreement where we sell you Basenji media and entertainment?
Certainly. These are the terms we are prepared to agree to.
Oil is worth a lot right now, so that's good. Oh, they want 104% of market value. That's awesome. So we'll definitely make that deal on the media. And then I think what we may do is sell the oil to the other kind of neutral party.
Apologies, but I must go. Let us speak again later.
Goodbye.
Because we definitely want to start selling that as soon as possible. Let's see if they need the oil.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, they want the oil too.
Are you interested in negotiating a trade agreement where we sell you Basenji oil?
Certainly. These are the terms we are prepared to agree on.
Alright. Well, it's worth a lot, so even though they're only offering 82%, we're still making a good amount of money. We don't have another action this turn, so let's go ahead and make this deal, because I don't have enough actions to call somebody else to check their price. And that'll help our relations with them.
Apologies, but I must go. Let us speak again.
We'll see if we can get a better
Goodbye.
deal with somebody else for the oil next time. But that at least gets us started and gets us making some sweet, sweet moolah. Well, you know what? Let's I don't want to really anger the fundamentalists too much because I'm trying to get that bonus. But I also feel like this is maybe a good opportunity to please some other factions as well, because we don't want to favor the fundamentalists so much that we lose everybody else. Let's go for it. So let's see where that puts us in terms of completing our objective. So we got more people identifying as capitalists. So we're still gaining 2% to our fundamentalists per turn, and I think as long as we can keep gaining and we don't do anything else that offends them, we're still going to get to where we want to be with them by the time the advisor wanted it. So I think we'll be okay as long as nothing else crops up that disturbs that. So I think we probably want to just focus on infrastructure this turn. Now that we're making some mad bank. 200 million, that's really good. Okay, so I think we definitely want to pump some money into education because we kind of been letting that slide a little bit. So let's go ahead and go with the secular education. And that should be good. You know what, we maybe want to just jump right to the university, which should help out a lot. Yeah, let's do that. That'll help our cause with the liberals. And we're making 50 per turn, so we'll be right back at 157 next turn, even if we do this. Yeah, that'll help boost that up a little bit. All right. So let's go ahead and end our turn. I guess... Yeah, we'll see if we can switch the education demand. I really don't want to go straight to tax breaks because I feel like that's going to eventually lead to problems. Let's do this. So let's see where that puts us. Oh wait, we've got a warning here. Oh yeah, you know what? That's one thing I didn't do. That's a good call out, game. I did not implement any like social welfare programs, and that's definitely going to cause problems for us if we don't get on that pretty soon. So let's bump this up and bump this up. I'm surprised that that wasn't enough to sway the fundamentalists, because both of these usually improve standing with people who are into the old ways. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, we're actually losing a lot of favor here per turn, which is kind of disturbing. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if there's an infrastructure thing we can do this turn that might help that. We really need to start getting more people on our side. Stop this kind of hemorrhaging of support. So capitalists like this. Let me see if I can do something that likes that the fundamentalists are going to be on board with. Actually, this is something I may want to do just because it's about that time where we need to start worrying about any sort of rioting that might happen. Because one thing about it is if civil unrest occurs and you start having rioting per turn, you're going to lose a significant amount of money per turn to that rioting, which is basically going to cripple the economy. So at some point we're going to have to buy these riot police, but I kind of want to see if I can hold out a little bit longer. I wonder if maybe the policy changes that I just made don't go into effect until next turn. I think I'm going to buy the riot police this turn, just to get that out of the way so I don't have to think about it later. And let's hope that the policy changes that I made are enough to get the traditionalists back on my side for next turn. Alright, so there's our 100 million that we were trying to save. So we better do that. And there you see why you keep that 100 million laying around, because otherwise we'd have been screwed. So that was good that we had that, but also bad that the situation forced us to spend that, because it would have been nice to keep that around a little longer. Let's see how we're doing with our fundamentalists. Now we're still losing one per turn. I don't really understand why. And I guess we could try to bump these up a little more. Let's see if that does it. in that case, I'm going to leave these where they are. Let's see. Yeah, I think, well, that got him to not be angry. What's that gonna do to the capitalists? Gotta see if I can get them just a little bit happier. What if I curtail some of this alcohol consumption? Okay, that gets them up. The only thing is I don't think 1% is going to cut it. I need to get them up 2% in the next turn to complete that objective. Let's see if this would be enough to do it, even just for a turn. We're gonna try to game the system a little bit. It's weird because this is supposed to have more of an impact on that sort of thing. Yeah, I would think that they'd be more psyched about that, honestly. Just looking at how this affects... It seems like it doesn't give a clear indication of how that's going to affect a faction's happiness, honestly. It's kind of weird. So if I completely, like... Yeah, that would make them super stoked. And actually, the only people that really annoys are the liberals. But we don't have an objective to please them at the moment. So let's see if we can ride this out for a turn and then like find a happy medium on the next turn. I just want to see if I can complete this objective without sending everything into chaos. I hate to do it, but I also don't want to screw up. Like, I've already gone through so much effort to get this objective taken care of. I'm gonna just agree to it so as not to ruffle their feathers any further. Alright. He's pleased that I got that. Cool. So I got a favor from this dude that I can call on later, which is good. Now, now that we've actually successfully done that, though, I think I'm going to revert these policies to something that's a little more sane. So let's kind of put this back to where it was. And I think actually that's the main thing. This other deal too. We probably don't want to actually close everything for a week. But it looks like just doing that for a turn was enough to kind of win them over, at least for now. So I don't think we did too much damage on the other factions doing that. The liberals are really displeased, but I think we can win them over with a little effort. So I think we're good kind of moving forward with this setup. kind of going back to the way it was. Let's see how annoyed they get if I bump this up. No, they're cool with that, being back to where it was. And that definitely helps with those other guys. I'm sure there's like an effect that happens over the turn that I'm just not seeing when I adjust the sliders. So I don't want to get into micromanaging this too much, because I'm sure if I keep switching these policies back and forth a lot, people are gonna catch on to the fact that I'm just jerking their chain. But I think for the moment that was a good play to get that favor from the minister and kind of bolster my support there. So let's see, we're at 106, still gaining 47 per. So let's burn a turn and get up to 150 so we can buy some infrastructure and still have 100 in the bank. Great. Why are my guys always doing stupid stuff? Let's see. We definitely don't want to keep him in prison, that's for sure. If we set him free, I feel like that sets a bad example and people aren't going to like that. So let's shuffle him off to the labor camp. Don't be an idiot next time, dude. How about that? Go break some rocks until you learn not to be a fool. Okay, so there's that. So we're doing pretty well, 153 with 47 per. Let's see if we can build something cool this turn. Kind of feel like maybe we should complete the education piece, and then we won't have to worry about it. And that'll really pump up the liberals, which we could really use right now. Yeah, let's do that. They're gonna be stoked. Alright, that was probably a good idea. So let's see where our other kind of problem areas are. Yeah, we really needed to bump up those liberals, so that was a good move. We probably need to start looking at the capitalists too, just to keep them from bottoming out, because the patriots and the fundamentalists are still gaining per turn, so I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of what we're doing with them, but we really need to focus on those other two factions before we get into trouble. So let's go ahead and burn another turn. What sort of horrifying thing is happening now? Cultural American atrocities, nice. Let's get cultural. Why not? People will probably dig that. It's only 10 million. I'm down. Let's get all cultural up in this piece. Alright, so 141, gaining 48 per. Let's see if there's a $40 million infrastructure piece that we can grab this turn. Try to keep that 1 million in the bank, or that 100 million in the bank as much as we can. Man, the military readiness doctrine is something we could really use if anything shady goes down, because moving the military units around when something bad happens can take an awful lot of time. So let's go ahead and grab that while we can. That'll help if we need to do anything with the military. And then let's see what else. Let's kind of check our status of our factions and see how that's going. Yeah, we're still losing. We're losing less per turn with the liberals now. I think they were into the cultural stuff, so that helped. We really got to get the the capitalists under control here pretty quickly, though, or we're going to have a problem, I think. Let's see what we can do next turn. Oh man. So I've had this option before, and I've always been hesitant to use it because I feel like it probably would help with the capitalism, but I'm just a little bit concerned about people running around with guns. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good idea, especially in a society that traditionally hasn't had people running around with guns. I feel like there's no good that can come from that. So I think we're going to hold off and try to get the capitalism boosted in some other way, because I think that might be a short-term gain, long-term loss scenario, allowing that. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, we got 150, so we can spend 50 million on something if we want, and not dip too far below normal. Let's see what we can do to, like, please the capitalists this turn. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's a way to please the capitalists for sure. The Patriots and the Liberals would like that next thing too, and that's only 30 mil. And this gives us more money per turn, which I like. Let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, that's cool. I don't think we really need that right now. Capitalists like that, and 3 million per turn from tourism. Capitalists like this also. That's 100 million though. We definitely can't get into that. I think we're gonna buy this turn so that we can buy this next turn and boost both. I think that's the way we're gonna go with that. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. That'll give us a nice boost. And that leaves us at 99 mil, making 48 mil per. That's good. Let's go ahead and burn the rest of this. Well, if we're trying to get the capitalists on our good side, I don't think that's the way we want to go. I think this will probably be okay to do. I don't really like the inequality that this promotes. but I think given what we're trying to accomplish right now, this makes sense. Okay, what do we got here? War has broken out between Zabil and Babelistan. Great, our two trading partners are fighting with each other. That's not going to end well. Awesome. Okay, so we're at 150, gaining 51 per. Let's go ahead and build that other infrastructure piece we were looking at. Yeah, this is going to be good. Patriots and liberals are down. Let's do that. Bam! Patriots were already down with us, so that's really good. Basically like free support. So let's see how we're looking now that we've done that event and those infrastructure builds. So the Patriots like us. The capitalists are still losing, but we're kind of buffering that. Fundamentalists are still down. Liberals are surprisingly still losing per turn, but only one. Let's see if there's something I can do about that. I do think we need to look at. It's going to be tough to balance the capitalists against the liberals. That's going to be tricky for sure. You know, let's take a quick look at the heat map and see how those countries that are fighting with each other are getting along with us, because I don't want to get surprised by getting like drawn into a military conflict unexpectedly. Okay, they're still happy with us. These guys like us quite a bit. These guys do not love us, but I don't think we got too much to worry about there. I think we're okay. I think we can kind of hang out, but we are going to probably have to start thinking about military stuff pretty soon here. We're probably not going to be able to go too many turns without starting to build an army. Because I have a feeling that once that conflict between those other two countries resolves, they're going to be looking for blood somewhere else, at least one of them. It's weird to me that the two countries that have the similar ideology to us would be fighting each other, but whatever. So let's see. That's just telling us about the war. That's cool. Let's try to pocket some of this money for next turn. Ooh, here's a chance to get some more money into the treasury, which I like. Obviously giving it to the people would help approval, but I feel like we should take it because I have a feeling we're going to get to a point here where we're going to need some extra cash pretty soon. So let's put it into the treasury. Alright, so this is our 1-year anniversary, and you might recall from the subtitles at the beginning that the whole point of this game is you're supposed to be running this interim government for 5 years. So basically we've played through the first year of the game at this point. And actually I think that's probably where I'm going to stop this video for the time being, just because I feel like you've really seen a big chunk of what the game has to offer. I mean, we haven't really gotten into any military stuff yet, which of course adds a whole new dimension. We haven't gotten into any of the espionage stuff or secret projects or any of that sort of thing. But I feel like, from a basic fundamental standpoint, you kind of see what the game is all about up to this point. It's basically making decisions about finances, about social policies, about diplomatic relationships with the other countries that surround you, and having those decisions play out and impact what you're trying to accomplish, depending on the style of government you're trying to employ. And I think that's one of the really fascinating things about this game, is just seeing how you might have an intent or a way that you want to take things, but the circumstances of the game, because of the random elements, might force you to go in a different direction than you were intending to. And I think that's kind of an interesting commentary on politics in general, and kind of the balance between what you might want to do as a political leader and what is necessary to do based on financial limitations or the demands of your people or that sort of thing. So it's kind of I've always found these political simulations really interesting, and I think this is a particularly well done one. It reminds me a lot of like classics like Balance of Power and Tropico and Nuclear War and things of that nature. Like there's a lot of good nostalgic vibes that I get from playing this game, while I also think it brings something new and interesting to the table, which is the context in which you play the game. That being a sort of random Middle Eastern country surrounded by other random Middle Eastern countries trying to navigate the extremely complex political and social aspects of that kind of part of the world, in that little microcosm of the Middle East. So I definitely would recommend this game. I definitely think it's cool and a very interesting, unique title, and especially for the price that they're asking for it, which is $10 or less, depending on where you pick it up from. I think it's a good, solid game. But I guess what I'll do here is I'll go through this speech kind of mini game where you basically try to rile up your population and get a boost to your to their confidence in you by performing a good speech. And basically the way you do that is you kind of pick a topic and stay on at that topic and try to get as many positives or as many pluses as you can before the speech ends. The tricky part about that is if you deviate from the original topic trying to get the pluses, that actually ends up working against you. So it's all about like choosing the options that fit the topic that you've picked, and then choosing the best options that match with that. So I'll try to give you an example of that, and hopefully I'll be able to pull this off.
The Honorable Basenji people, my fellow countrymen and women, my beloved citizens, I address you today as we are ushering in a new era in the history of our homeland. I wish to address you first, as you are the owners of this blessed land, its defenders, the builders of its prosperity, and the architects of its future.
Okay, so here's what we need to decide is what kind of stance we want to take. And I think it makes sense based on the way we've been playing. Yeah, I think it makes sense based on the way we've been playing to take this option, because this kind of dovetails nicely with the things we've been doing. We bolstered education. Uh, we can start working towards the healthcare stuff, and I think this will be a thread that we can follow through the speech. So let's try and do this.
We have an obligation to leave, as our legacy, a nation whereby none shall be without food, nor health, nor schooling.
Alright, so that went over reasonably well. Now what we have to do at this point is pick the best option that dovetails with that matches that. So let's look at these +3s and see what we can do. This is talking about military defense or imperialist aggression. That's not really going to match up. So this is good. This is a healthcare system reform. Yeah, let's jump on this because it's a +3.
Basenji will undertake a major reform of its national healthcare system to ensure full coverage exists for all of our citizens.
All right, we got a nice boost from that. So let's look at our big items here. Deregulating financial institutions, that doesn't really fit with what we were talking about. National unemployment insurance doesn't really fit. Ah, man. I don't know about this. This is going to be tough. The environmental stuff doesn't really fit either. This is a tough one because this could go either way. Like I kind of want to go for the +4 because I feel like it's not too far off. But this is also a +4. I feel like this is kind of on par with what we were saying, more so than the deregulation thing. Yeah, let's go with this.
Second, we will establish a national unemployment insurance, so no Basenji need ever to fear losing their job again. Finally, it is with a full heart that I say to you all,
Okay, so we're in good shape. We just need to not lose anybody, and hopefully we can gain a little. Let's try to go with this.
our people will put their steadfastness into the works of peace and human culture. This is our desire. We hope for it, and we believe in it.
Alright. Looks like we pegged it. Alright, there we go. So everybody, we got +3, +3, +4, +20 from the Liberals. So that was a really successful speech. Alright, so that puts us in really good shape. I would say that's going to do it for this episode or this video. If you want to see more of this playthrough, I probably will record at least another year's worth of the playthrough. And if you guys are interested in seeing that, give this a like or a comment or whatever and let me know. And if that's the case, then I will post some more footage of this game. But for now, I think that's going to wrap it up. This has been Rogue State. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know I have. Like I said before, I definitely recommend the game. And that's going to do it for now. Until next time, Viva la Revolucion.